Hey guys, I thought I'd pop on here today and talk about the power of silence and why saying less can matter. So, I'm Marcy. Hi. And I'm a talker. I love talking. I am also a speech therapist, and that's probably why. And I'm also an entertainer. So, talking with people and cultivating conversation has always been a talent and an ease for me. But it's also something that I've had to learn how to stylize a little bit and get better at, just because of the line of work I'm in. As a teacher, as a therapist, as a performer, communication style is important, and silence is part of that style. So we're just going to talk about it a little bit today, and what are some things that can add to your communication style and how you do it, and just some thoughts to think about, just things to think about when it comes to cultivating a good conversation, right? We're talking about the silence part of the conversation. So I'm going to list a few things you can think about as you cultivate your style of communication that can help you communicate better as well. So listening more, that's number one. Sometimes when we get on a roll, especially if we're talking about something we're interested in, something we're involved in, there's not a whole lot of space for somebody else to chime in. And when they do, sometimes we listen just long enough to respond, but we aren't truly listening to what they have to say and considering their point of view in that moment. It's just kind of a turn-taking means to an end, sort of. So listen more. To get even further into that listening more, we need to think about how to ask questions, asking open-ended questions. One of the greatest pieces of advice we have gotten probably, and you've probably heard it before, is if you want someone to talk about themselves, then ask good questions. And with that, I mean open-ended questions, WH questions. What did that make you feel like? When did you do that? How much of a triumph was that for you when you completed fill in the blank, right? And it helps you gain more understanding. I was in college the first time I went to college a lot of times. The first time I went to college, I was in an interpersonal relationships class, and it was one of the greatest classes, I think, to this day that I still draw on. And my professor, that first day, we were all sitting in tables and groups, and he said, okay, you're going to talk to each other and learn about each other. Ready, set, go. And we all did the surface stuff, like, what's your major? What do you do? Where are you from? Hey, the weather today. How about the Braves? It was all very surface stuff. And he stopped the class and he said, okay, now we're going to do it better. And he gave us a few examples of questions to ask each other that really cut to the core. One of them was, and I still use this one today, what is your greatest triumph? What's your biggest fear? When did you feel the most powerful? Right? Those are questions that are really kind of deep, and they cut through that vulnerability, and they help you get to know that person just on a really base level. It's not just, hey, what did you eat for breakfast? Like, that's really general. Everybody does it, but to ask about somebody's feelings of power and where they get motivation, what their greatest triumphs were, right? Those are knowing questions. Those are questions that propel a deeper understanding of your conversation partner. So open-ended questions and good questions, get to the core of things. The next one would be processing time. Processing time for yourself and for your conversation partner. When we take in information, we need to simmer on it for a second. Now, some of us have quicker paces than others, but some people need more processing time. And that could mean processing in a question, coming up with a response, digesting what you've just said to them. And I think because of our human point of view, we often think that others operate on the same speed that we do, but they don't. So we have to be willing to observe and adjust, or listen to their requests for that kind of adjustment. And sometimes even taking a break is what that requires. Like if you're having an argument with your partner, right? That could be one of those times where they become overwhelmed. You want to get the job over with and hurry up and finish and resolve this. And you really just need to take a break and let each other process what has already been said, and then come back to the table to finish. So processing time, I think that's an important one for both conversation partners. leaving space for someone to chime in. That's the next one. So little kids often will get talked at, and they will just sit quietly and look at you. And so I've learned as a therapist that if I want a child to chime in, especially one that's not confident in their speech skills or doesn't quite know what they want to say, or we're asking them questions, but we're doing it in rapid fire and they just don't have enough time to like process and get it back out to you. If we leave time, if we leave space, which normally is uncomfortable for us, right? That moment of silence, or even most adults get uncomfortable after about 4 seconds and we try to fill in the gap. But if we leave time, then often someone else who maybe isn't as outgoing, or maybe is a little less confident, they might take that opportunity to chime in and share a thought. So I think that's a good one, leaving space for another person to chime in. And that often means we're uncomfortable with a little bit of silence, and we have to learn how to be more comfortable with that. Finally, all of these little tips lead to better conversation and more thoughtful responses, not only from you, but also from your communication partner. And it allows a more connective style of communication. So I hope these tips are helpful, and I hope you have a great week. So I'm Marcy, and see you next time.